am sure if I feel anything after I am powered down, then it will be the pain of missing you.
The uncanny is the psychological experience of something as strangely familiar. It may describe incidents where a familiar thing or event is encountered in an unsettling, eerie, or taboo context.
I do this 24/7. See, we're doing the hand thing all day, for sure.
The concept of the uncanny was first presented by Sigmund Freud in 1919. In this essay, he studies the eeriness of realistic dolls and waxworks. As human beings, we expect an emotional response from something that also looks human. So when we can't get that response, it gives us an eerie sense that something is a little bit off.
Drinking some milk. She just got up from a nap. It's about 4 o'clock.
Examples of this can be found in robotics, 3D computer animations, and lifelike dolls, among many others. This degree of repulsive response aroused by a robot with an appearance and motion between barely human and fully human entity is called the uncanny valley. The name captures the idea that an almost human-looking entity seems overly strange to some human beings, and it produces a feeling of familiarity and thus fails to evoke the empathetic response required for productive human-robot interaction. A number of theories have been proposed to explain the mechanism underlying this phenomenon, one being mate selection, another being mortality salience, another being pathogen avoidance, and finally the most basic one, violation of human norms. Along with robotics, a number of films and computer games that use computer-generated imagery to show characters have been described by viewers as giving them a feeling of revulsion or creepiness as a result of the characters looking too realistic. Depending on the intent of an artwork, the artist may want to avoid the uncanny valley or exploit it to elicit a particular response from their viewers. Masahiro Mori, at the time a robotics professor, wrote about the effect in a 1970 essay, which translates roughly as Valley of Eeriness. At the time, humanoid robots had yet to be developed. Mori was intrigued by the uneasy feeling that wax figures had always evoked from him. The English term uncanny valley was first mentioned in a 1978 book by Jasiah Reichart called Robots, Fact, Fiction and Prediction. First, the uncanny valley might occur at the boundary where something moves from one category to another, in this case between non-human and human. Second, the presence of a valley may hinge on whether we're able to believe that the near-human entities possess a mind like we do. A final compelling area for future research is that the uncanny valley occurs because of mismatches between aspects of a robotic's appearance and/or behaviour. Android science progresses rapidly and is creating increasingly more realistic robots. The uncanny valley would not exist if a robot was indistinguishable from a human, because there would no longer be a relative dip in emotional response. But scientists have begun venturing deeper into the metaphorical valley to better understand why robots or virtual characters with certain human characteristics can trigger such mental uneasiness. That understanding may prove crucial as human-like robots or virtual companions enter homes and businesses in the coming years.
David, I am ready. You may turn me off.
The mirror stage began from the theory that the first time an infant recognises itself in the mirror is a moment where the infant loses a sense of being a whole subject, where they were a part of everything around them, in return develops a sense of the self, which as a result can make us detached and unaware of our real selves. As self-identity leads to the ideal I or ideal ego, this is when a person recognises that they are an I, because when you see yourself in the mirror, you think, yes, that person over there is me. As a result of becoming distant to our own feelings, this creates a mixture of feelings such as hate and love, where I want to be like that image. However, Jacques Lacan later discovered that the mirror stage was not a moment in time, but instead a constant part of the human psychology. Therefore, the mirror stage is a misconception between what we see we are and what we are. Frantz Fanon, who was a psychiatrist, philosopher and revolutionary, gave an explanation on the internal inferiority of blackness that can be linked with Lacan's theory, as he takes the theory of the moment an infant first looks into the mirror and is able to recognize the self, and then replaces the infant with himself, or a black subject, and the mirror as a white gaze, as a result where he comes under the white gaze and it gives him the realization of blackness, which was previously not there. An example of an artist that uses Fanon's ideas is Carrie Mae Weems, who looks at racial and sexual identity issues. Another artist who bases their work on the mirror stage is Claude Cahun, who creates gelatin silver prints, but also looks into the theme of self-adoration, like the legend of Narcissus, who is the man who became trapped by vanity when he saw the reflection of himself in a pool of water. In response to this theory, Curran has created two collaged pieces. In both, he has used black and white images, first to link it with the two artists who both work in black and white, but also to make the images merge better so that they work together visually. The first is influenced by the idea of the ideal image, as the mirror image represents misconception and self-deception, when we are influenced by an imaginary identification. For this reason, he has used images from movie heroes or magazine models who are muscular and have the ideal body image, as it is something people are obsessed with, which they try and chase after and forget their real self. The second piece is also based on the mirror stage, however, it is about misidentification, where people become confused with reality by games or movies and they can't tell the differences between the two. He has chosen games in this piece as when we look into the screen, we see either the character or what they experience, as we play the game as we start to convince ourselves that we are the character in the game. Thanks to graphics advancement, games have become more realistic, which only helps stimulate the idea that we are in a game and we are the character. As a result, some people choose to spend more time in games rather than reality, or others confuse games with reality. For example, a teenager reenacted a robbery and murder of Taxi Driver after trying to imitate scenes from the Grand Theft Auto video game. He told the police that he did it because killing seemed easy in the game. The collective unconscious is acquired through heredity. It consists of all instinct and its associated prototypes. Instinct reflects the dynamic aspect of the spirit, determines the future tendency and possibility of human behaviour, and the two are in harmony, which is the most important and influential part of the human spirit, and restricts the individual's ideology, behaviour and creativity. Although at the lowest level of the subconscious, but always seeking performance, if its content is not assimilated by consciousness, it will be expressed through religion, mythology, art, dreams, and symbols. Because the prototype of human inheritance does not need the help of experience, it is possible to make an individual's actions similar to the actions of his ancestors in a similar situation. The artist's creation is like God's help, is the original image that plays a part. It is believed that from the day of birth, the collective unconscious content has provided a set of preformed patterns for his behaviour, which determines the selectivity of perception and behaviour. We can easily perceive something and react to it in some way precisely because these things have already existed in our collective unconscious. Between 1906 and 1915, Hilma af Klint created the theme of her work, Paintings for the Temple. Abstract works of this cycle, including 193 series and group paintings. The first 111 pieces were made between 1906 and 1908. The artist described that when she painted these paintings, her hands were guided like the media. The paintings were created directly by me without any expectation. I don't know how to describe them, but I painted very quickly and surely, not changing a stroke. Jung believes that one of the important functions of dreams is to present ideas that people do not realise or notice. The symbolic role of dreams is mainly the expression of collective unconsciousness. Only after zooming in can they truly understand their meanings and prototypes. Dreams provide information that helps people to restore balance in their lives. Its function is mainly compensatory. It creates the balance of the whole spirit by creating the content of dreams. In the process of explaining the dream, it is essential to understand the other feature of Jung's psychoanalysis of dreams. In addition to the individual analysis of dreams, he attaches great importance to the series analysis of dreams. He believes that the individual analysis of dreams is of little significance, and the series of dreams of dreamers in a period of time can provide a coherent personality picture, which can make the main part of the dreamer's mind through revelation and certain recurring themes. The tendency is revealed. The symbolic value of objects. Fetishized objects are all objects that have their own life.
I am a woman, and this is a bridge. And despite our vast differences, we are very much in love.
Freud's psychoanalysis could not be missed from arts, at least as an interpretation, if not as a therapeutic method. In art, due to its free and often direct nature, the unconscious reveals itself without being censored by consciousness in plastic ways. It is up to the psychoanalysis to discover those hidden forms that can lead to an interpretation and understanding of both the artist and the work. In many of his theories, Freud researched artistic works, paintings, poems, and sculpture to sustain his superstitions. However, an opera cannot speak for itself unless the author has taken it into account. Freud starts his analysis from the author towards the artwork, not the other way around. Childhood dreams, revelations, journal entries, biographies are very important materials for understanding the work of art. In recent years, many art exhibitions have favoured showcasing objects, not those that are already recognised in the art world, but rather the everyday objects which clearly are not intended to be viewed according to strict parameters, but which rather occupy our everyday spaces and impact our personal life. The idea of fetish, which is present in both Marx and Freud's writings, it implies a particular form of relation between human beings and objects. The idea of fetish involves attributing properties to objects that they don't already have, and that should be correctly recognised as human. In Marx's theory, we talk about commodity fetishism, which means that the relationship between things are more important than the relationship between people. In contrast, Freud's concept of the fetish as a desired substitute for suitable sex object explores how objects are desired and consumed. In brief, we could talk about sexual fetish, an object which replaces a whole person. Nowadays, the meaning of the word fetish extends to many fields far from being fixed or determined. The fetish object is linked to magic, spells and bewitched objects, and therefore could lead to superstition. Since the end of the 19th century, it has been present in various fields, all linked to social sciences, but also political, economical and psychoanalysis. It is no surprise that the Surrealist movement, which was very intrigued by the idea of the unconscious, took an interest in what the world of objects could reveal on a dream level. An extreme of such object is Murray Oppenheim's notebook from high school math class. It contains the following equation: x equals an orange rabbit, which Andre Breton, the father of Surrealism, loved so much that he decided to publish the whole notebook. Oppenheim managed to persuade the Surrealists to allow her to join their circle, which until then was not allowed to girls. Her fetishistic sculptures, fashioned from teacups, fur, high heels and other feminine domestic objects, address the themes of food, sex, death, cannibalism and bondage, always with a mischievous twist. Her famous fur-lined teacup was instantly embraced by the Surrealists as the quintessential expression of their movement. This fur-covered teacup, saucer and spoon, covered in Chinese gazelle pelt, is an unsettling hybrid. Civilization meets wild animal. Viewed by many as the definitive surrealist object, the idea apparently arose from a conversation at a Paris cafe where Picasso and his girlfriend Dora Maar were admiring Oppenheim's fur-covered bracelet. This provoked a discussion about what else might be fur-covered. Both tea and fur were then, as now, a mark of civilization, sipped and worn by refined ladies. The combination, however, is distinctly uncivilized. André Breton immediately saw the object as evidence of a fur fetish and retitled the work Breakfast in Fur. Time later insisted that the sadomasochistic reference was not in line with her original intention, which had merely been to make something strange. Another outstanding work is My Nurse from 1936. While the sexual references in Breakfast in Fur are subtle, this kicks it up a notch. Dinner is served and it's a pair of white high heels, displayed sole up on a silver platter and trussled like an oven-ready chicken. They are white, i.e. pure, but scuffed, i.e. dirty. Our reflection bounces back to us from the rim of the silver tray, implicating us in a bizarre cannibalistic ritual. The artist has encapsulated nearly every imaginable sexual fetish. Bondage is perhaps the most obvious, but of course there is the foot fetish. The oval form of the tray and the deep crevice between the shoes is vaguely vaginal, and especially in a dining context. The white shoes and their scuffed appearance might reference the Madonna whore complex. Oppenheim knew her Freud backwards and forwards, so her references are intentional. If the sexual content and its sinister undertones are disturbing now, the following story gives us a glimpse into what it looked like to the people of 1936. A female spectator flew into a rage and smashed the original work when it first appeared at an exhibition in Paris. This is a second version made by Oppenheim shortly after the original was destroyed. Stone Woman from 1938 is a configuration of smooth stones descending into the water, where it takes the shape of a woman. The figure could be small or large, there is no indication of scale. The composition is spare, but full of contrasts. Solid versus liquid, animal versus mineral, hard versus soft, wet versus dry. Created at a moment of crisis, a debilitating depression that prevented the artist from working, it is a poignant metaphor for professional and emotional paralysis. The only really positive thing, she later wrote, is the feet, which represent a connection to the unconscious. While she continued to work steadily, it took her many years to re-emerge publicly as an artist. The majority of Freud's dream symbols were sex symbols. He believed that a person as a whole was represented by a house. Houses with projections and balconies that cling to the walls could be interpreted as women, and houses with smooth walls are men. Children would interpret as small animals or vermin, while parents were kings, queens, or highly respected people. Birth would be represented as water, either jumping in or out, or rescuing someone, as it resembles a mother relationship. Nakedness is symbolized by clothing, mainly uniforms, and death would be symbolized by taking a journey. Thinking more of symbols that represent sex, the number 3 would pretend male genitalia, and the penis would be represented as objects that can penetrate and hurt, such as swords and knives, and also by upright objects such as poles, umbrellas, trees, or the Washington Monument. Other symbols for the penis would be objects that water comes out of, such as fountains and faucets. On the other hand, female genitalia can be represented by enclosed spaces that can be filled, such as holes, pockets, suitcases, the mouth, and churches. From the research that Emily has found, it seems that Freud's beliefs of sex dream symbols are full of innuendos, and some of the symbols are quite literal and obvious, while others not so much. It seems that while the male symbols are quite proud and righteous, the female one, on the other hand, are not, and appear to be quite dependent on the male or missing something in order to fulfill their purpose. Staying on the dream symbol and chart topic, looking at Magritte's The Key of Dreams from 1930, it becomes quite obvious that his interpretations of dreams are quite different from Freud's. For example, he seemed to believe that snow was represented by a bowler hat, the moon by a woman's heeled shoe, a storm by a clear drinking glass, and the ceiling by a lit candle. In a way, Magritte's symbols seem to be more sophisticated than Freud's, as they are not objects we typically associate with the meaning that it has been given. Looking at a different type of dream, we look at the Aboriginal dream time chart, and this shows us that everything is connected. There are 3 separate categories: the human world, the physical world, and the sacred world.